Welcome into another episode of the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast here on Sports Illustrated from the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Tom Cavanaugh. You can follow myself at TCAV30 on Twitter/X. Follow our insider pages at Rams Insider on SI. That's both on Twitter/X and Facebook. And then type in your search bar Rams Sports Illustrated to find all of our daily content. Today, Thursday, we're going to be talking about a few different things. Going to give you three keys to a Rams win over the Saints this Sunday afternoon. And then also, we're going to look at a few leading storylines leading up into the week, some good news on the injury report side of things, as well as many others. So we'll kick it off talking about a few key stats to the ball game. And this is kind of shaped around what the Rams did wrong or they failed to do last week against Philadelphia. Because if they're able to achieve these three aspects where they really, really did not thrive in, they'll be fine. Just because, their defensive play has been okay. It's tough to stop a guy in Saquon Barkley when he's going for over 300 yards himself. I don't think any defense would have been able to stop him last week. I don't think that's on the Rams. Their defense will be okay against the Saints. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that does not pertain to our three keys. Everything about this right now is about the offensive side of the football, and it starts with second-year running back Kyren Williams. He cannot fumble the ball anymore. He, in his last 4 games, has coughed it up 4 times and lost it twice. In this game, a key stat that he needs to reach is 80 rushing yards with 0 turnovers. He had about close to 80 last week, but he fumbled the ball in the opening possession of the ball game. The Rams, I know they had a 7-3 lead at one point in the game, but that could have easily been 10-3, 14-3, and really taken the air out of the Eagles early on. Big reasoning for that was because when the Rams were driving, they got down in the red zone, and Kyren Williams coughs up the football, gives the ball right back to the Eagles, or gives it away to the Eagles to start the ball game, and they go down, kick a field goal. Rams able to respond, or et cetera, et cetera. Whatever happened, and then obviously it was a blowout. But you can't start off the ball game like that, and that's a big thing, obviously in the NFL where drives are limited. But for a Rams team that really thrives and they feed off of the momentum that they gain throughout a game, throughout a singular drive, having that happen, especially late in a drive in the red zone, that crushes your team. And they were just kind of climbing uphill the rest of the ball game after that had happened. So Kyren, he's a big guy to watch for. Got to be able to run the ball effectively to get that pass game going. And then also just keep that ball tucked in nicely because he's had issues over the last several games. Another big one is going to be on the third down conversion rate. I'd like to see a 40% conversion rate from the Rams this week. I know that's anywhere between 40 and 50 is very successful, but if you're able to get at least 40, I think they'd be just fine. They were 0% last week, 0 for 8 on third downs against the Eagles. Take it back to week 10, they were 3 of 12. So this team pretty much all year long has really struggled with being able to maintain long drives, continue to keep to achieve third downs and continue drives down the field instead of going 3 and out. Talked about this stat when we were recapping the Eagles game. The Rams went 3 and out 3 straight times to end the first half. They let the Eagles have the ball for 11 of 15 minutes in the second quarter. There's no way you're winning a ball game when your defense is on the field for 11 of 15 minutes unless you're finding some scooping scores or some pick sixes. So that's got to be a big thing. Listening to what offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur as well as head coach Sean McVay had to say, they were both really keying in on the fact that the consistency on first and second down needs to be better because the Rams find themselves in situations where it's third and long, anywhere from 3rd and 7 to 3rd and 10 or farther, especially with the sacks, which we'll get to in a little while. But you got to get some positive yardage on first and second down. Get to a 3rd and 3, a 3rd and 2, something manageable to be able to either have that option to run or pass. It's not like you're the Detroit Lions where you have 2 different running backs on 3rd and 8 and you can just give it to them and it's no problem because they'll get you 10 yards easy right up the middle. That doesn't work for most teams. So being able to have that option of being able to pass and run the football on a 3rd and manageable, 3rd and short, that's going to be a big help for this Rams team. So if they're upwards of 40%, I could see them being 4 of 10, 5 of 11, something around there. I think that'd be just fine for this ball game because the Saints defensively, they're not all that great. They're one of the worst passing defenses in the league. So I could really see a guy like Puka, Kupp, If Demarcus Robinson somehow plays, which head coach Sean McVay said he will, they could really thrive on third down as well. But it also calls back to Kyren Williams and his ability to be successful on those first couple of downs as well. Finally, we'll talk about the sacks, which we had just mentioned briefly. This is something that has really plagued the Rams all year long. 5 sacks given up last week. Take it back to 2 weeks ago in the loss to the Dolphins. They had 4 sacks. Didn't give up anything to the Patriots, and that was a game they won easily. So you can see a direct correlation from games where they're giving up a multitude of sacks, a handful of them, and they're losing, to games when they're giving up 0. Stafford has time. He's accurate. He can feel comfortable in the pocket, doesn't have to scramble or anything. And they're posting 4 touchdown passes and winning a ball game by 10-plus points. So I think this is probably the biggest stat of all 3. Obviously, you don't want to turn the ball over. Obviously, you want to convert on third down and keep drives alive. But your offense will never get to that point if you're not able to limit the sacks. And getting veteran captain offensive tackle Rob Havenstein back this week is huge. McVay did not absolutely confirm that he was going to be back this week, but he did say things are trending in the right direction, and he's looking really good. So being able to get Havenstein back on there, huge piece to add with Steve Avila, Bo Limmer, a bunch of the other guys on that front 4 to keep Stafford polished. So those are the 3 keys to the game. Now we're going to transition, look at a few storylines before Sunday. So one we'll start with here. We're talking about Puka Nacua. He had a big game, 117 yards on 9 catches against the Eagles last week, and that was a milestone for him. So as Nacua finished up his 23rd NFL game last week, he had over 100 yards for the 10th time, which ties Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings for the most amount of 100-yard receiving games in just 23 games, which is incredible because that's just under 50% of the time that he's grabbing 100 yards in a ball game. I mean, he wasn't former Ram Odell Beckham Jr., who did it 15 times in his first 23 games, which is utterly ridiculous. But that says a lot, having your name surrounded by guys like Jefferson and Beckham Jr. Puka, I mean, he has been nothing but incredible all year long, all of last year, and he's been limited this year as well. He's only played in 6 games. He missed 5 of them with a knee injury early in the year. And when you look at his stats up and down the season, 3 of his 6 games are going for over 100 yards. He was 2 yards away against the Dolphins from having another 100-yard game, which would have been 4 out of 6 games played this year. That's ridiculous. And I think it kind of helps, too, to have a guy in Cooper Kupp or Robinson or your tight ends in Parkinson and Allen to be able to kind of take away from what Puka's doing when it comes to a defensive scheme. Because if he was the number 1 and the only really solid option for the Rams, and Stafford's throwing to him 90% of the time, it's easier to scheme that up defensively and put your best corner and your top safety blanketing over top of Nacua. That's not the case. You have multiple threats evenly across the field, which opens up Nakua's ability to be successful. One other final point we want to talk about, this is looking over at the Saints side of things for their offense. We're talking about utility player Taysom Hill, a veteran 8th-year player. I think he's in his 8th year with the Saints. I mean, he does everything. He can play the quarterback position on a Wildcat. He can run the football from a running back position. He can line up as a tight end. He can be as a wide receiver. I mean, he could probably play defense as well if they let him. But, I mean, Taysom Hill, he's 1 in a million when it comes to NFL players. Nobody really does it like he does when it comes to the versatility. He's got 6 rushing touchdowns so far this year. He's been pretty much set up or I guess lined up on the offensive side of the ball in several different ways. And both coaches talked about it, head coach Sean McVay and also Chris Shula, and being able to, they're just impressed really with what he's able to do and his ability to be so diverse in his offensive style and his ability to do a bunch of different things. And it's going to be tougher for the Rams to be able to scheme up against him than it is Alvin Kamara. Now, Kamara, he leads the team in both rushing and receiving yards. He's their best player, no doubt. But at the same time, you know what you're getting from him. He's either going to run the ball between the tackles, bump it outside on a pitch or two, and then also catch the ball in the backfield, go for some yards after catch, maybe a slant over the middle. Those are things that you can easily check out on tape. Now, when it comes to Taysom, I mean, you got to go back through hours and hours and hours of film and check out what this guy's doing in this single play 2 years ago is something that he hasn't done in the last he hasn't done it in 2 years. So stuff like that, where there's differences in his play style and where they line him up. It's going to be interesting to see how the Rams really deal with that. I think they'll be fine with it. Hill, he's more so used around or in the rushing game than he is passing. Not even close. I mean, his rushing yards is definitely higher than his receiving yards this season by a good chunk. And he's obviously got 6 rushing TDs, as I mentioned, and nothing through the air. So the Rams looking to bottle him up, hopefully on the ground. If he's able to break out for one big catch or two, I don't think that's going to kill the Rams unless it's a huge moment. But they got to pay a lot of attention to what Taysom's able to do, and their coaching staff recognize that as well. That's going to do it for us here on the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast on Sports Illustrated. I'm your host, Tom Cavanaugh, from the Fans First Sports Network. Folks, have a great rest of your Thursday. We will see you tomorrow here on the LA Rams Insider Pod.